2011 was an important year for RuneScape. After declining since 2007, they made a sharp U-turn by reintroducing the wilderness and free trade, an extremely unpopular decision that they had made previously to combat botting and real-world trading. But they weren't going to allow things to get as bad as they used to be either, and prepared what they called the Bot Nuke, Cluster Flutterer. They would drop the nuke a single week prior to RuneFest, where they would be meeting players face to face. An extremely bold move to try and win over the community, but an equally risky one. It's easy enough to say you're going to end botting once and for all, and a different thing entirely to actually do it. The botting communities shrugged it off, but Jagex were confident. In fact, they were so confident that the then CEO, Mod Mark Gerhard, said he would offer a job to anyone who could make a working bot within a month of Cluster Flutter dropping. And Jagex had a good reason to be this bold, because it worked. Every single bot for RuneScape was crippled, no longer functional, or detected so easily that the account was on a one-way ticket to a ban. Overnight, Jagex had ended botting in RuneScape. So you can imagine Mark's surprise when, just a week later, the owner of the largest botting website stepped through the doors of RuneFest with a fully functional bot on his laptop. Hello RuneScape, Wilmsted here with a new video, and how is everyone doing? Today's story is an exciting one that I imagine a few of you know bits and pieces of, but definitely not the whole thing. In fact, what I'm about to tell you comes from two sides with very different opinions on the matter. I've done my best to bring it into a single narrative, but you're welcome to read up on it yourself and come to your own conclusions. Oh, and as always, don't forget that botting, or the use of any third-party tool, are against the rules of RuneScape. Just so I don't get any trouble from people shouting, "But Will said I could!" I definitely hope you enjoyed today's video, but don't try any of this at home, kids. December 2010. If you want a botting client for RuneScape, you go to Powerbot. RSBuddy, RBbots, all your favorite cheating software is available in one convenient place. And with customers paying a handsome fee for the services, the site thrives. Not just with their extremely active forum, but overall, easily making the website one of the largest RuneScape fan sites around. While there are a lot of bots made by just as many different developers on the site, today we're concerned about two of the biggest developers in particular, Arbiter and Jacmob. Now, despite the large amount of bots in the game at the time, the developers weren't actually seeing much of the reward. The owner of Powerbot, Paris, was raking in a large profit with ad revenue reaching $1,800 a month, on top of money coming in through VIP roles and sponsor subscriptions. Powerbot was a massive success, and a success that Paris kept mostly for himself. Understandably, Jacmob wasn't very happy about this. Most of Powerbot's success came from the bots provided by the developers. Paris was just responsible for hosting them. In fact, Jacmob believed that the only reason Powerbot was even alive was because of his bots, and the site would be nothing without him. So Jacmob reached out to Paris with a deal. Jacmob wanted the rights of ownership to Powerbot, but would let Paris keep 70% of the website's profit. You might think that sounds like an odd deal, but Jacmob claimed he wasn't interested in the money, only in managing a successful service. Despite the relatively generous offer, Paris declined, and so things continued as normal with Jacmob staying on as a developer. However, by this point, Jacmob had formed his own plans. Together with Arbiter, he planned to start his own botting website, using their own software now hosted in a place that they could manage however they wanted to. And so, RSBuddy was born. A domain was set up and registered under Jacmob's new company, Automaton Softwares Limited. He founded the company in Germany as the local laws permitted bot scripts under freedom of speech. Everything's legal in Germany. Before Paris was even aware of the birth of a new rival site, he still had to deal with the growing discontent in his own house. Jacmob's offer had started something of a fire, with many other developers now arguing about Paris' leading style, leading to a strong split down the middle between those who stood with Paris and those who stood with Jacmob. Amidst the flames, Paris brought in a new developer, Liang, to learn and maintain RSBuddy in Jacmob's place. Now, if you think that sounds like the last straw, that's because you're right. As soon as Jacmob found out, he resigned from his position with Powerbot and went full throttle on RSBuddy's development. By pure chance, this was actually a critical moment for the bot makers, as around this time, Jagex announced the return of free trade. Introduced 3 years prior to combat rampant bot abuse, it was now being reversed to combat the huge amount of players they had lost to it. The community is rejoicing. I mean, why wouldn't they? One of the most unpopular changes of all time is being undone. But for each second Jagex spends preparing for the update, so do the bot makers. With the floodgates open to real-world trading once more, gold farming bots were back on the menu, and it was a bot-making arms race to have them ready to go for the market. The return of free trade wouldn't just be a good update for the players, it would be the best update that the bot makers could ever wish for. So gold farming is about to come back in a big way, and we have a new botting site looking to take the crown from Powerbot. The next few months are going to be critical in seeing who gets to provide their software to all the new clients. If either sites make a mistake, it'll all be over for them. So remember how Paris replaced Jacmob with an inexperienced developer? Well, Liang has some pretty big boots to fill, and nowhere near the experience to do it. They give it their best shot, but while making some changes, they overlook some important safety features needed to secure the software. Uh-oh. Enter Ghost. He discovers the flaw, and boy is it a gaping one. With access to Powerbot's server, he uploads a jar file, adding a modified version of RSBud to the site. As Powerbot users download RSBud from their website, they unintentionally downloaded a keylogger alongside it. One that not only gave Ghost their account passwords, but one that also kept track of their in-game bank pins. Uh-oh. Well, I'm sure nothing bad comes of that. Let's check in with the other team. Towards the end of the month, Arbiter also resigns from Powerbot, and just a few days later, RSBuddy is released to the public. The site quickly gains traction. Both Arbiter and Jacmob are well-known and well-respected developers in the community, and botters are more loyal to the software than the site they got it from. So there is a mass exodus of users over to the RSBuddy website. So as February approaches, Jacmob's new site is primed for the most important update in years. Now, even the most rule-abiding players knew what the return of free trade meant. So, as soon as the update hit, the economy crashed. Anticipating the gold farming rush, whips, god swords, and pretty much any valuable item were panic sold en masse, causing their value to drop 5% each day. Players expected the market to be flooded with these items, which would tank their value, so they sold them in advance, which tanked their value. The gold farmers didn't even need to do anything, the players ruined the economy by themselves. Which is funny, because the gold farmers weren't actually accomplishing much, because by the time they had built any significant amount of wealth, it was all gone. Not just what they'd bought, but all of their hard-earned valuable items, they'd all vanished. Or, to be precise, they'd been stolen. I wonder if that had anything to do with Ghost Keylogger. Now, mass hijackings aren't the sort of thing that happens quietly, so the news of this exploded in the community. And it didn't take long for the common thread to be pieced together. Everyone who had been hijacked was an RSBot user. Even if they were all rule breakers, the botters weren't morally corrupt. They did look out for one another, and so they spread the news as much as they could. Do not use Powerbot's most popular botting software. It's a keylogger in disguise. Not liking Powerbot's chances here. Rumors also quickly spread that the notorious hacker, Ghost, was the one behind the hijacking. Players claimed that he had stored up thousands of accounts, which he even showed off on a tiny chat page. And all the money he had stolen had been sold off to real-world traders for a massive profit. Powerbot fought these rumors, however. On February 2nd, they released a statement. Ghost wasn't behind the hijacking. It had been Jacmob and Arbiter. This was all a dirty trick they'd played to gather funds for their new site, while simultaneously sinking their greatest competitor. And Ghost had been hired as a scapegoat for all of RSBuddy's illegal activities to keep their name clean. How devious. Days later, Arbiter released his statement of "No you." Paris was lying to save face, and to make sure that RSBuddy's reputation would be tainted from the start. Ghost also wanted in on the very exciting statement action, and took full responsibility for the incident, explaining how he had gained access to the servers through Liang's faulty code. The return of free trade had been a bloodbath, but despite the massive hit that Powerbot had taken, the site pushed on. They may have lost the battle, but they had not lost the war. With Liang's loophole now fixed, both sides offered reliable bots that Jagex could do little about. But by the end of the year, that would have changed completely.
Hey, buddy, are you okay?
Not really. I'm dealing with a hijacking issue right now. It looks like someone has been snooping on our data.
Wait, aren't you using a VPN?
Of course not. I don't want to have to wait ages for each page to load.
Buddy, pal, guy. I've got something that can solve all your problems.
For the last time, I'm not going to.
NordVPN.
Oh.
NordVPN has over 5,500 super fast servers in 60 countries, so you can browse the web both securely and speedily. No one is going to be snooping on your data, whether you're at home or at a coffee shop. And hey, Nord doesn't keep logs, so they couldn't look at it even if they wanted to. It even works in China.
Jeez, they got it working in China? Okay, that sounds good and all, but I'm not gonna throw money at something that doesn't live up to the hype.
Hey, if you don't believe me, go ahead and try it for yourself. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee if you're not as impressed as I am.
Okay, you've convinced me. I'll sign up for it later.
Well, you better be quick about it, because it's the last chance to get that 70% discount for a 2-year plan. They're starting their final sale, so make sure not to miss it with Will Miss It.
Awesome, thanks. Wait, who's Will Miss It?
I'll see you around.
Does that guy even work here?
Several months have passed, and both sides are in a stalemate. Despite Powerbot's setback, they still have a long history behind them, which seemed to have just as much star power as Arbiter and Jacmob's names did. Both sides operated at full capacity, but with one key difference. Powerbot charged premium for most of their scripts, in line with Paris' desires, while RSBuddy offered the same service for free, in line with Jacmob's. Since the choice between the two basically boiled down to a paid option and a free option, I'll let you guess which side had the edge. RSBuddy was quickly considered to be RuneScape's largest cheating site, but it actually went beyond that. In fact, RSBuddy was RuneScape's largest fan site, full stop. And with Jacmob hard at work on RSBuddy 1.5, their biggest update yet, the large user base was only going to get larger. RuneScape users had wondered how Jagex planned to combat the mass return of bots after the return of free trade, but at the start, it looked like there was no plan. Botters were getting away with it, and Jagex just seemed to be turning a blind eye. The situation got extremely dire after Jagex's response to Jagex on one of the most infamous videos in RuneScape history, Is This the Good Deal? In mid-August 2011, Jagex, a well-known and respected dual moderator, made a video displaying how rampant the botting problem had become, and discouraged players from voting for Jagex in that year's Golden Joystick Awards unless the issue had been dealt with. In response, Jagex demoderated him from both his positions and continued to do nothing about the problem. There were mass protests over this in-game, and still no solution in sight. As one of, if not the most heated topic in the community at the time, the upcoming RuneFest was guaranteed to be a Jmod bloodbath. There was no way to hide from the players in person, but bang, out of nowhere and not a moment too soon, Jagex revealed Cluster Flutterer, the infamous bot nuke that claimed it would eliminate 98% of the bots in-game. I opened the video talking about this, so I'm not going to repeat too much of it here. But as said before, the CEO of Jagex offered a job to anyone who could have a functioning bot within a month of the nuke dropping. So, October 25th. Jagex may have been bold about their claims, but they'd been bold for a reason. The nuke worked. For the first time in years, the game dropped below 100,000 users visibly online. All the worlds were nearly dead, with around 100 players on any given one, and the trade worlds, which were previously often too full to join, barely peaked about half capacity. In 1 week, 12.7 million accounts were banned for gold farming, and the most notorious country for it, China, saw account registrations reduced by 99.9%, with monthly registrations of several 100,000 down to just 953. Jagex estimated that within the first week of using the bot nuke, they had banned around 40% of their active player base. And the bots were down. The community scrambled to get them back online, but Mark Gerhard had put a time limit of a month on this challenge. He would have been impressed if someone was back up and running within this time. Needless to say, the botting communities tried, but their efforts were fruitless. Jagex had won. The bot makers couldn't beat the nuke. So 4 days later, on Saturday the 29th of October, Mark Gerhardt stepped on stage for RuneFest 2011 to rapturous applause. He presents these statistics for the bans and everything else mentioned earlier. An hour later, he exits the stage, a smile on his face, having gone from the community's villain to the community's champion. But as he exits the stage, he is approached by another smiling figure. No doubt a player pleased with his work, he imagines. But they're not smiling because of the Bot Nuke. They're smiling because they've beaten it. 18-year-old Jacmob tells it straight to Mark Gerhardt's face. He's defeated it. Skeptical but intrigued, Mark invites Jacmob behind the scenes to test his claims. Jacmob pulls out his laptop, turns it on, and shows off his own pride and joy. RSBuddy 1.5. And sure enough, Jacmob is a man of his word. It works. The nuke has been defeated. After an entire hour on stage waxing lyrical about the Bot Nuke, Mark now sees it broken before his eyes. And as one man of his word to another, Jacmob leaves RuneFest with a job at Jagex. November 4th, 2011. Just a week later, RSBuddy announces that they're shutting down, claiming that botting harms RuneScape and isn't very social. This confusing U-turn of their stance makes perfect sense once Jacmob announces that he's joining Jagex. As he does so, his other team members admits that they'd consider joining too if they were given the chance. Jacmob also reassures the users of RSBuddy that there will be no retroactive repercussions for them. Their information won't be used against them. Their accounts won't be hunted down for botting. But Jacmob will be spending all of his time going forward to combat it, something he is extremely confident that he'll succeed at. So what happened to Powerbot? Well, a few days later, Jagex released a statement saying that they would be suing RuneScape's most popular botting websites. Yikes. In the same statement, they also cleared RSBuddy of any liability, saying that they won't pursue them as a gesture of goodwill due to their recent change of heart. It's almost like they coordinated that with the owner of RSBuddy, who was just starting his first day in their office. With quite the reputation behind him, Jacmob has to decide on what mod name to use at Jagex. Something inconspicuous would let him put his past behind him, but something, it's Jacmob. He picks mod Jacmob. Under this genius alias, Jacmob starts to serve as a consultant in Jagex's anti-botting initiative. At the same time, he starts attending the University of Cambridge as a small fun thing to do on the side. While Jagex staff had a lot of programming and developer experience with the game, they didn't have the inside knowledge that Jacmob could offer them, making him an extremely valuable asset in their attempts to finish it off. In later years, Jagex staff have admitted that they often referred to Jacmob as Mark Gerhardt's prodigy. Hired without the barriers that other staff had faced, and with a direct line to the CEO, Jacmob had a prime position that the other staff members could only dream of. In fact, J-mods often ran their ideas through Jacmob if they were being rejected by upper management, so they could use him to fast-track their own processes. Together with Mark, they also made up 2 of the top 3 highest donations on the release of the Well of Goodwill, using money reaped from real-world trading accounts, donated through their personal accounts. Jacmob certainly had the most unique position in the company at the time. For example, when a money pouch bug was discovered in 2012, the J-mods were only allowed to ban 200 players, something that Jacmob wasn't restricted to. A lot of responsibility for an 18-year-old kid. Hey Jacmob, can you go ban these guys for me? Thanks. Oh hey Jacmob, can you go snoop on my ex-girlfriend's accounts for me? Wow, that's what she's up to these days, Christ. Yo Jacmob, can you go like and subscribe to Will Miss It for me? Now you might be wondering what happened to Jacmob's partner in crime, Arbiter. Well, Arbiter actually continued to keep developing bots, despite Jacmob's new position. Arbiter claimed Jacmob was well aware of it, but, and I quote, "He cool." Now, when Jacmob said he was going to put all of his time towards crushing bots, he wasn't lying. The Bot Nuke had been effective, but with enough time, people were starting to get around it. So Jacmob had been working on his own project. Optimus, also known as Botwatch, was Jacmob's anti-botting software that had been launched in May 2012 to much success. If anything, it may have been a little too effective. In September of that year, it received a large update, but also accidentally banned 40,000 innocent players. Mod Emily made a statement saying that this was just down to human error. Jagex then spent a lot of time manually checking every single account before unbanning them, since just unbanning everyone would unban a lot of bots too. Despite this small setback, BotWatch proved to be an effective anti-botting tool. And while not outright eliminated, bots started to become a very uncommon sight in the game. Jacmob has certainly left a legacy at Jagex. Apart from being a crucial member of the team against spotting, he also had a huge part in the development of old-school RuneScape, producing map editors and making engine changes that enabled the client to have a resizable mode. Yeah, you can thank Jacmob for that. However, he wasn't the only ex-cheater to work on an old-school client. Ghost, now working under the name Matthew, teamed up with ex-content creator Skiller in 2013 to try and make a third-party client, similar to the ones that had been made previously popular, such as SwiftKit but for old-school RuneScape. Dubbed Orion, the client went on to be massively popular, despite Matthew's dubious past with, adding in keyloggers. In early 2015, after Mark Gerhard left Jagex and started his own company, Jacmob was offered a job at Gerhard's new business. And, ever the prodigy, Jacmob took it, handing in his resignation to Jagex. Additionally, with Gerhard becoming an investor in Automaton Software's, Jacmob's company, they were quick to set their sight on the rise of Orion. In discussion with Matthew and Skiller, Jacmob acquired Orion under Automaton Softwares. With this acquisition, ex-CEO Mark Gerhard and ex-Jmod/botmaker Jacmob became a part of Old School's most popular third-party client. With this, Orion went through some rebranding, gaining the name that everyone knows it by nowadays, OSBuddy. This name had been bought from a separate bot developer to better suit the RSBuddy and Automaton brand. Though the team was skeptical of the name given it was basically the same as the old botting client, Jacmob reassured them that the community would quickly forgive and forget. It'd be fine. Okay, where to start? So Jacmob was right, the name was the least of their worries. But over the coming years, OSBuddy would see a lot of drama concerning it. A lot of this stems from Jagex working out a deal with OSBuddy and then starting to hound other third-party clients. As a result, disgruntled players started to try and dig up as much dirt as they could on OSBuddy. And as you can imagine, there was quite a bit of dirt. For starters, Mark Gerhard's involvement was a bit sus. Kind of odd that the ex-CEO is involved with a sanctioned third-party client that's profiting off of the game, no? And then there's Matthew, who, as you can imagine, didn't have the cleanest past. Not just the stuff we've mentioned already. In 2014, a screenshot of a private message from Matthew was uploaded to Reddit showing Matthew blackmailing Orion users who publicly disagreed with the client. Then, in 2017, a HD version of Old School was developed by ex-bug abuser Quint, who you may remember from the 2011 Rotten Potato robbery. He claimed that Matthew had created a fake screenshot saying that OSHD was a cover to a future mass hijacking, like the stunt that Matthew had pulled 6 years prior. OSBuddy did however go to Reddit to confirm that Matthew didn't have the possibility to upload any files to the OSBuddy client, so there was no way their users could be hijacked by him. Regardless, Jacmob had seen massive success from over the years due to his work on RuneScape. Before he even joined the Jagex, he's estimated to have profited over $1 million solely through RSBuddy in a single year of existing, and was given a slap on the wrist instead of legal action once he actually joined Jagex. Arbiter, Jacmob's ex-colleague, did over time lose contact with Jacmob, but continues to write botting scripts for Old School. His RuneScape 3 bots were eventually shut down due to the lack of interest in them. Arbiter is also hopeful following Jacmob's departure from Jagex, believing that the bot makers may be able to increase their lead on Jagex with their biggest obstacle now out of the picture. Powerbot was unceremoniously shut down in 2020 after a long drawn-out legal battle against Jagex. Paris either went back to France or Troy, depending on which punchline you prefer for that joke. Thank you all so much for watching this long look into one of Jagex's most controversial employees. It's kinda weird how the connotation of controversial has changed over the years, isn't it? At least we didn't see any hour-long overly monetized apology videos from this. I'll see you again next week as we dive into another exciting topic of RuneScape's equally exciting history. Thank you once again to our sponsor for this video, NordVPN, and until next time, my name is Will Missit, and I'll see you all later.